Good evening, everybody. Welcome back then to another LFM stream, and we are back for Season 17, and the Case King Pro Series gets underway once more. Oh, it is good to be saying those words once again, of course. If you were following along in Season 16, unfortunately, I couldn't quite cover the final few races, but to bring you up to speed with how that fantastic championship played out, Amedeo Castorino became a two-time Pro Series champion, joining the greats of Marco Bischoff and Luke Whitehead, the only two other drivers to have that accolade to their name. A fantastic fight all season long with George Boothby and Sam Gaskell, but in the end, the Italian in the almighty Nissan GTR was the driver that came out on top. But it'll be fierce action as we go racing once again in this season. Kickoff 2025 in style. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and New Year and are looking forward to the action that we have going on over the next 12 weeks. We can see we've got pizzas at the ready to go for this one. And it's going to be a blinder. Spa-Francorchamps, 60 minutes of action here this evening is going to be amazing. Of course, legendary circuit, hardcore driving for all of these guys. And they'll be put through their paces in these GT3 cars. We'll see exactly how they get on very, very shortly. And to take you through just a little bit as to exactly what these guys are competing for this season, the Pro Series has a wonderful array of prizes up for grabs. €2,500 worth of goodies from Moses Sim Racing. And the driver finishes in P1 in the championship. P2 will receive €1,500 worth of vouchers for Nitro Concepts gear, and then €1,000 worth of Sim Magic fun and shenanigans for the driver finishes in P3. So lots to dive into and compete for these drivers over the coming weeks. But if anything else, they'll be spurred on by pure pride. If nothing else, these drivers, they give it everything every single time that we go racing, and the Pro Series has always delivered the goods and the action, and I'm sure tonight is going to be no different. As we shall look to make our way just over to qualifying in a second to see how our drivers are getting on for the evening. 50 minutes, of course, to put together their best lap in qualifying, make up the grid before 60 minutes of action. Now, if you are new to the world of Low Fuel Motorsport and the Case King Pro Series, first of all, big warm welcome to all of you, and a thank you to those who have already followed before the stream even got started. But these guys are the absolute upper echelon of sim racers and the best of the best you will find in the world of ACC. And they will compete toe-to-toe at some of the greatest tracks that you can find on the game and the calendar. And we'll see what sort of challenge they end up taking on this evening, of course. Spa is a mixed bag for drivers. Sometimes it can be one of glory. Sometimes it can be one of absolute woes. We have seen some pretty hefty crashes on the opening laps of certain races, and qualifying can sometimes count for everything or nothing in a situation like that, because if you put yourself at the front of the pack, you might think you have clear air, easy getaway, and sometimes that works out for the best. You manage to leave the carnage behind, escape away, and if there is a collision up through Rouge and Radion, then that is nothing for you to worry about. But there has also been plenty of shenanigans at the pointy end of the grid as well. We saw last season when championship protagonists Amedeo Castorino and George Boothby came together at Suzuka at turn 2 on the first lap of the race, and that was fundamentally what also rather hampered and ended George Boothby's campaign for what would look to try to be a second title in the making. So we'll have to see if the drivers run into any such shenanigans for this evening. Hopefully, they will be just fine. But we shall wait and see and find out and get underway and racing. Because here we go then, qualifying has just started and it is looking a little bit on the rainy side. The very kind advice in the chat there to pop some diesel in my PC. Admittedly, I won't be following up on that one because the last time I put diesel in something, it blew up 24 hours later, which was my car at the end of last year. So hopefully we'll be in better states over the course of the evening. But these guys, as they head out onto what is a very, very wet circuit, it has some interesting conditions up ahead. You can see in that weather graphic at the top right portion of your screen. In 10 minutes time, the rain is easing off, which means the track is just going to get faster and faster as the session goes on. And it typically will see then a lot of drivers trying to be that very last car out circuit. But if you leave it too late, you can get traffic, you can get in trouble, you can miss the line before that clock ticks down. Even when it gets to 0, as long as you have started your lap before you reach that point, you can, of course, finish it in the session. For those that are new to the world of the Pro Series, like I say, these guys, they will be taking to 12 fantastic circuits over the next 12 weeks. Every third race of the season will be a 90-minute race, which always adds a little bit of additional strategic elements that these guys have to try to contend with. Trying to see it work out what do they do in terms of pit stops, fuel, and the likes. Tonight will be marginally simpler, not too much simpler, but just a little bit, as they will, of course, just have 60 minutes worth of racing to do. They have to serve a mandatory stop in a central 20-minute pit window in this race. And depending on whether or not this rain continues over to the race session, we will have to wait and see. I'll tell you what, though, as we get started for the first round of qualifying this season, we'll go on board with the reigning champion and your newly crowned two-time champion of that, Amedeo Castorino, will take us for a lap around this beautiful and wonderful circuit in this glorious sounding Nissan GTR. It served him oh so well in season 16. And I'm sure it will be a mighty one once again. He has been able to extract a ludicrous amount of pace out of this car as everybody gets very heavily backed up in towards the bus stop chicane. Laps will initiate in just a moment. Like I say, it won't necessarily be these ones that count for everything in these sessions. When you do have that essence of track evolution, and the last lap being where the track is at its best, these early laps won't mean the most, but it will be good for driver confidence. Hard braking then in towards last source, clipping the apex nicely, trying to get the power down. A little bit of corrective lock on the exit then, staying off. It's going to hear the car aquaplaning on the straight towards Eau Rouge now. Big commitment, big lift though on the entry. Chunk of curve taken, playing around with the gears, trying to keep it all together. Might be an invalidation, we'll have to wait and see. There is a puddle up here, there you go, and you can hear the car start to really struggle for traction. But Amedeo, of course, mighty in this Japanese piece of machinery now, bombing his way towards Lecom turn 5, braking just before the curb. Not quite using as much of it as you would typically see in the dry conditions. Really patience through Lecom here, and then trying to set up the exit through Malmedy. Square it all up nicely. Don't use too much of the grass. Car won't stay as planted there in towards Brussels. Patience on the entry here. Let the car run a little bit wide. Very similar to the line you see around Luffield at Silverstone. Almost a double apex corner in towards Jackie's corner of 9, and then following on down to, of course, the almighty Buon. Big commitment here on the entry. Got to be so careful with the placement of these wheels, trying to use the absolute maximum width of the track, but at the same time not go too far into the curb, otherwise you will lose that grip. Another bit of aquaplaning in towards 12 of Piff Path. Momentum kept up nicely by Amedeo. In towards turn 14. Patience on the throttle. Need to get a really good exit here. A little bit squirrely on the exit. Open up the right-hander of 15. And now carrying good speed on the exit and the climb up the hill. And I would imagine Amedeo does have that windscreen wiper going, because otherwise he is having the most awful views here. But I'll tell you what, this is a pretty impressive one at that turn 17. Blanchimont, big commitment there. Couple of stabs at it on the wheel, but he keeps it all together. Aquaplaning once again. Boothby briefly to the top of the timing sheets in that Ford Mustang down towards the bus top chicane, clipping the first apex nicely. Great patience through here once again. Castorino, good traction towards the line. What's it going to be for the reigning champion? And right now, it is clear by half a second. And there we go. There's your answer. And once again, the aliens of the sim racing community finding every little advantage that they can. And Amadeo driving in bonnet cam there, and that is why he did not need the windscreen wiper. You can see George Boothby's, on the other hand, furiously going away. But it's a 2:28 from Castorino. It's rare that we see lap times that long, that high for most of the circuits we go to, but you combine such an almighty long lap in these tricky conditions as Jardier briefly goes into P2 as Eric Del Fanta in the Honda. The two Hondas actually immediately looking competitive, and that's perhaps not too much of a surprise. Hondas have always typically been very, very good in the wet conditions, and Jardier, who hasn't always had the most amazing qualifying form in recent seasons, looking like he could be a threat here. It's at Spa-Francorchamps. It's certainly going to be one where racecraft, patience, and of course consistency is needed, as Eric Del Fanta had a wild ride through. And you can see the times continuing to come down. Nicholas Huben for Team Nitro briefly went to the top of time sheets in the Ferrari 296. Is now over to Renault Kooks in the West Competition Racing Audi. So it could seriously be anyone's game, but I'm sure the picture will certainly change over the course of the next 10 minutes as that rain continues to reduce on down. Fantastic control there through Erosion Randion. Does he run into the same sort of trouble? You heard the rev spike every time they go through there. So tricky to keep it planted, but he is flying once again. So is Jardier, 6 cents up on his lap time. So we'll see what the beloved streamer can do as he makes his way through towards Pearl now. Lovely livery on board that car, of course, as Jardier with his dog planted over the doors. He'll have a lot of support for this race, I am sure, as he does every single week in the Pro Series. Let's see how he gets on for the evening. And of course, as we see these drivers making their way on around, take you through a little bit of the ever-expanding world of low-fuel motorsports, as of course this community has grown so much over the course of the last few years, starting off as a third-party platform for specifically ACC, and it's continued to grow and expand bit by bit. You saw in that wonderful trailer for what is ahead in Season 17, recent integration with Automobilista 2 that everybody has been having a great deal of fun with. AC1 also added shortly before that to this competitive platform matchmaking system. And then ACC, of course, an absolute placeholder and beloved parts of this community, the real heart and soul of where it all started. Jardier doesn't quite go to the top of timing sheets. Right now, those honours go to Amalazzi in the Aston Martin, as the 255 competition crew has been expanding over the last few weeks. It'll be interesting to see how they get on. But in the world of low-fuel motorsports, you can make your way through ranks. You have a license which has a rating effectively associated with your raw pace, speed and performance driven by your results from races, and you have a safety rating that effectively goes alongside that as well, and that very much does what it says on the tin. So if you have any shaky moments like that, then you will get the kind of small little occasional influence on that safety rating, but it is primarily there as a deterrent from, well, how can we put it other than violent bunting of your competitors, so that we can have some wonderful, fun, clean racing in this community. Of course, all of the platforms, of course, there is a fantastic team of people, hidden heroes in the background that make all of that possible. The stewards that, of course, cover the Pro Series every single week in the top split of racing. And then, of course, a large group that look into all the inquiries that unfortunately do tend to have a habit of being submitted over the course of the season. But if you're looking to get into the world of competitive multiplayer racing, also make some friends in the communities and enjoy this lovely little niche and hobby that we have come to know and love, Lo-Fi Motorsport is a place where you'll be welcomed in with open arms. You have so much choice and freedom to see what you want to get involved in. And you can stay in touch with all of the fun stuff and action over in the Discord server as well. So do head on over there. And of course, if you are going to follow along with the Pro Series and all the other action that the world of Lo-Fi Motorsport has to offer, do consider giving a follow here on Twitch, and you can catch up with all the action over on the YouTube channel as well. You can subscribe over there. Meanwhile, Abalazzi on circuit has been hard at work. Big improvement for him, almost towards the 26s of Aston Martin. Right now looking very, very quick. It is always a car that goes well in mixed conditions. Sarah Sullivan in the Nissan GTR, though, looking also very speedy. He goes up to P3, almost into the 27s himself. Another one of the Visceral Esports crew. What a mighty couple of seasons they have had. Of course, Sam Gaskell very much spearheading the performance and speed of that team at the highest of levels over the last couple of seasons, but definitely a squad to be reckoned with as they continue to grow and find speed on this sim. Nicholas Huben looking to start a new lap, I believe, not an improvement this time around from the Ferrari driver, so he'll have to go for another attempt. We've got Leon Burnt out on track in the number 10 car. He's finding a few tenths of a second as it stands, and currently is the only car that is on an improvement as it stands. 3.5 minutes of this qualifying session left to go. Now, drivers are looking to go for a couple of runs at the very end of the session, trying to get the track at its best. We'll start to see those penultimate laps starting very, very soon. I imagine you've seen how tricky it is to manage the traffic side of things over the course of this session. So, whilst they will want to very much be the last car out on track, it could be the case you want to be out a little bit earlier. Tell you what, that benchmark from Abalazzi is an absolute mighty, mighty lap time. Castorino, the reigning champion, clearly knows what he's doing and has a car to help him do it. Of course, it's maybe not quite as suited around this circuit in the rainy conditions as it would be in the dry, but it is still very, very competitive, and he is only within half a second as it stands at the moment. He set that lap time after Abalazzi's as well, who theoretically would have had worse track conditions to deal with. So we'll have to wait and see how it continues to evolve over the remainder of this session. Leon Burns jumps up and separates the Aston and the Nissan GTR. Puts himself onto the front row for the time being as more lap times are coming in to improve. His teammate in the number 5 car finding 0.8 of a second as it stands. That would be well into the 27s. Castorino also now going purple in the middle part of the lap. So the track is getting significantly quicker. We've got Finn Zimble as well in the Lamborghini. That'll be an awkward car to hustle around in these rainy conditions. Not quite as treacherous as its predecessor. In my competitive sim racing days, had a rather curious habit, not purposefully, of always choosing cars that were unnecessarily uncompetitive at the time. And the previous generation of Lamborghini, it was a lovely little joy to drive around, but in the wet weather conditions, it was an absolute faff, and it would not put its power down. What power it did have in terms of top end wasn't very much, had no downforce, and it ate through its tyres like a very, very hungry chipmunk. So it really wasn't the most competitive entries. This one, the Evo Edition, far more competitive. New provisional pole sitter Nicholas Huben by 0.05 of a second topples that time from Abalazzi, but there is time left on the clock for improvements to come in. The next one is looking to be the reigning champion, Amadeo. He will get one more time after this. 0.6 up on his previous. Would be there or thereabouts. Doesn't look like the track is evolving too much at this point, and I'm not sure it's quite going to be enough to topple who, but it's identical time. How many times have we seen that in the last 2 seasons to the thousandths of a second? But Jardier in that Honda finds a heap of time in the final sector and goes into provisional pole. What a way it would be to start his season in that number 8 Honda, to put it on pole. And we know what he can do in the races. We know how smart he can be in wheel-to-wheel action. He's always one to make progress. We jokingly refer to the Jardier Trophy each round of the season for the car and driver that makes the most progress up through the field, and that is because this man has a habit of doing just that. Can easily end up inside the top 10 from well outside the top 25. It's just has so much experience behind the wheel. And now, as drivers start to arrive onto their final laps of the session, then several improvements coming on in. We'll have to see what everybody can deliver in these last moments of qualifying. Amedeo Castorino right now going purple in the middle sector. Jardier not too far off as well. It's very, very close between them. Hooper is down, so it doesn't look like, as of right now, the Ferrari driver will be trying to take that pole position back. It's a big lap time and improvement from Finn Zimble, who gives it everything out of turn 15. I told you that car was a little bit of a hassle. Unfortunately, that will lose him a chunk of time because you carry all of that momentum, or lack of, in the case of the number 18 up the hill. Good commitment, though, through Blanchimont, recovering 4/5 of a second by the time he gets towards the bus stop. This is going to be a good time from the number 18 car, who all of a sudden is triggering those purple mini sectors towards the line. He's going to go. What can the number 18 do? And even with that mistake right now, he is on provisional pole. How about that? Jardier, not too many corners to go. How's Castorino? I don't think Castorino, unless he has an absolute blinder through Blanchimont, he could be out of it. He's a 10th of a second down. Jardier is up. George Boothby is up further down. Big improvements as well from the likes of Justin Stubenrauch, Aidan Walsingham towards the end of a top 15. They can suddenly jump up the order. Jardier about to set the benchmark as well. We'll see what he can deliver towards the end of the lap. But Finn Zimble, what a time from the Lamborghini driver. Here comes the number 8 Honda. And it is towards provisional pole, a 2:26.8. That is a big time then, as Stubenrauch, he tries to improve as well. And it could have very much have just gone towards Jardier. What can Stubenrauch do around the final sector? He will not be on pole position. It'll be a good time. It's improvement, but it's only up to P3 for the time being. What about Aidan Walsingham? 9/10 of a second up. It'd be below 2:27s. This could be front row territory. The Aston Martin is an absolute beast under the brakes. And if he gets it all tidy, which he very much has done, this could be a time to threaten the Honda. I think he might just miss out. What's he going to be? From the British man is not quite good enough. Half a second up for Philip Menard. He goes in towards P12. And I think with all of that said and done, Jardier, for the first round of Season 17, puts himself on to pole position here at Spa-Francorchamps. But sometimes it is the man and the experience that can make the difference when the rain falls. And what a way to kick off Season 17. I'm sure there'll be a lot of happy people watching on with that one, and no more smiling than the man himself. He will be delighted with that result. The Honda, like I say, does always go very strong in wet weather conditions, but you really have to have something special to hook it all together around a circuit like this. It can be difficult, it can be treacherous, and it can bite back if you start to just push those limits just a little bit too far. But, of course, Jardier, experienced at dealing with these conditions, experienced with that car, and he's delivered the goods when it mattered. Fantastic effort there from a driver that did previously contest, of course, 4 championship-winning seasons, went toe-to-toe with Marco Bischoff multiple times, has had the odd victory here and there in seasons gone by since those times, but it's been a while since he's put it at the very front of the pack. He will be delighted with that one, and he'll be looking to try to convert that into a race win. Once again, we'll take a walk through the grid in just a moment. It's exactly how everybody is stacking up for this evening. But my goodness, what a fantastic, fantastic effort from everybody in that session. Mighty, mighty stuff from all of these drivers. And I can tell you, looking at the weather forecast of the race, I think it's going to be, once again, a pretty interesting evening of action. They will certainly be put to the test at trying to hook up these GT3 cars around this circuit and seeing what they can deliver, because it is not an easy one at the best of times. It is so tricky to hook up around here, because it just has it takes any opportunity to just put you into a tricky position. So you have to be absolutely on top of your game. No point in time can you ease off in terms of concentration. And we'll see how it all plays out for them. Johnny then, as you can see, puts it on to pole position then. And we're joined on the front row with Aidan Walsingham in that number 4 Aston Martin. Great result from the British man. Of course, multiple race winner himself, so he'll be looking to go to the top of the standings at the end of those 60 minutes. Finn Zimble, what an absolute standout performance from him. I'll tell you what, he will be feeling like that could have been a pole position that got away. That exit out of turn 15, losing him about 2-3 tenths of a second might have been within his grasp. But still, fantastic effort and fantastic opportunities. He'll be joined behind by Justin Stubenrauch, Nicholas Huben, the reigning and now two-time Pro Series champion Amadeo Castorino, and Eric Del Fanta in P7. Abalazzi, after setting the benchmark for so long in that session, didn't quite bring it all together when it mattered most. He will start in P8. Shay O'Sullivan, great effort from the Visceral Esports driver. He starts in P9, ahead of George Boothby, the number 1 man, still, of course, in the server with that elo higher than anybody else. Fantastic accolade from the alien himself. Philip Manar in the number 6 Ford Mustang. He will start in P12 ahead of the Frenchman of Valentin Barrier, as he will be joined on the 7th row of the grid. Renault Coutts in the Audi, of course. Another tricky car to wield in the wet conditions. Good effort there from the Estonian driver. As I think we had this problem last time, and I've lost all my practice in terms of, unfortunately, our P15 driver. But I'll take a couple of stabs at that a bit later on. But David starts P15 with Fabrizio Campanella and Oystein Brennan following up behind him. P18 will go to Michael Frey in the number 30 Porsche. That's a car that tends to have a bit of a wild time for various reasons up and down the grid, as some cars wanting to make a little bit more progress on the formation lap than others. But keep an eye out on that Porsche in these tricky wet weather conditions. The top 20 will be closed out by Sam Gaskell and Sasha Vasta before we make our way to Janus Reinders and Eric Gessel on the 11th row of the grid. Just behind him will be Loris Lynn Iverson, the Danish driver in the number 34 Mustang, with Lukas Schneckenberger in the next of those Mustangs. That'll be interesting around here. Calls absolutely mighty in a straight line and mighty in terms of top speed, but in those wet weather conditions, can you really utilize that to the maximum? Unlikely. Axel Ramenet and Samir Foch make up a row number 13 with Louis Petzold in the number 32 car. Lovely livery on board that one, as think we've had a little bit of shuffling around there. Not quite sure what happened there. Dennis Adler starts in 28th position with Karl Japor in the 29th spot in the number 17 Aston Martin. Fabio Zerbin next of... okay, we've got some interesting shuffling on the board here. Where Fabio Zerbin ended up. Okay, those two have apparently swapped around. Not quite sure what's happened there, but the two Virtual Esports driver have swapped between 30th and 31st position. Andre Hepalf in the 32nd spot will be joined then behind by Mattia Mex in the number 33 in P33. Of course, these car numbers refer to their relative position in the server based upon their elo in the world of the LFM ranking system. Martin Lawrence and Peter Duvala make up 34th and 35th position respectively, with a whole host of Bentleys at the, Boatleys at the tail end of the grid, with then Bruno Bruto and Dario Iemolo starting down towards the tail end. So I'll have to see, as the formation lap starts to come to a close, how it all plays out, and have a little bit of a look at what the weather's doing. Now, clearly, right now, we have got dampness on this circuit, but there is no rain. There is absolutely no rain, and there is no rain forecast for the next 30 minutes, perhaps even for the remainder of this race, because if you look at the wind, it is dead. It is dead as a dodo. And for those familiar or new to the world of ACC as well, that typically speaking, kind of you can have a, you know, as you would in real life, a pretty good relation between how much changing conditions you will end up running into alongside with the wind speed. So if you have very high winds, you're likely to face different conditions over the course of the race, and if it's dead, then it's unlikely to deviate. And absolutely, Jadier, he would have been really wanting this rain, and this now gives these drivers a really tricky call to make, especially when we get to that pit window, because when that opens in 20 minutes time, will the situation be that these cars are destined for dry conditions? Are we going to move to the slicks? Are we going to have to wait until further on in the pit window? We'll have to wait and see. So it's going to be a very, very interesting one of that. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not quite doing the initial start announcement, here's because they will take off before we head in towards Eau Rouge. Oh, a Nightbot has been struck down. It's okay, Andy. Look, I believe that you're a newcomer to the world of LFM. He means really well, but he tries his best. So yeah, try to avoid anything that looks vaguely spammy or capitals, otherwise he just unnecessarily strikes down the hammer from above. But we love him. He's kind of like that cousin that you didn't want to attend the party, you kind of had no choice but to invite, but you kind of love in adorable fashion. It's like that, really. Anyway, on to the more important stuff then. Jadier on pole position for the first time in a long time here at Spa-Francorchamps. Wet weather to start, dry weather to proceed, and a fantastic group of cars to take it over the next 60 minutes of racing. The Case King Pro Series is back. It's going to be wonderful. Buckle in, everybody, as we wait for lights out. As there we go, good start away from Jadier, who should just about have the line covered. In towards Eau Rouge they go for the very first time. Will they get through cleanly? Easier said than done. Little bit of squirrely action in the back end. Somebody almost going into the wall immediately, but so far so good it seems, as there's a little bit of chaos. Actually, one spinner, Andre Hepauth, at the tail end of the group, but other than that, everyone has made it through. But look at this, it is Walsinger versus Jadier towards Lecon for the first time. Jadier goes deep on the entry. Can he cover it off? He does indeed, as he makes his way through in towards Mamadi for the first time. Walsingham applying the pressure immediately and could be very, very quick in these mixed conditions. The Aston Martin always strong when it is in that sort of transitional period. And there is yellow flags further down the order. It's Lewis Petzold that's gone around. There's the damaged Frenchman Andre Hippout making his way through. Someone else just gone to the pits. Gaskell has dropped down the order. Disappointment there for the number 2 car. And we've also got Lynn Iverson that has gone back to pit lane. So some cars running into trouble. Side-by-side action on the way towards pit 1 as well, as it's getting very busy. Oh, the Pro Series is back. How he missed it 3 wide. Through pit 1 they go. Stuart rounds getting caught out. Michael Frey, I told you, in the action. Gets a touch from the car behind the Bentley that goes on through. He just about manages to keep it all together as they fly on towards pit path for the first time. Somebody's gone off. It's one of the Mustangs. I think it might have been Stuart rounds. Once again, George Boothby has lost a heap of time. 9 positions lost in the opening portion of the lap. It is chaos and drama here in the Case King Pro Series. Once again, various parts of the grid separated by a couple of seconds, other parts separated by absolutely nothing as they fly on through. I have to go to the helicap and can't capture it all as they make their way through turn 15, trying to negotiate these very tricky conditions. Big slide from Martin Lawrence in the Bentley in the background as they go up towards Blanchimont for the first time. I need to actually take a little bit of a peek at the battle for the lead, because Walsinger and Jadier side by side on the entry in towards the bus stop chicane. but he does hold on for the time being. How do the other drivers at the tail end of the field fare in this? Iemelo trying to make progress up through the order. 12 positions gained, might be 13 in just a moment. The McLaren driver flying as he makes his way up through. A little bit of a mistake, clips the back of the Mustang, manages to not lose out too much so, and the Mustang's race will continue. And George Boothby then is on dry tyres. That is why he has plummeted down the order. What a gamble that is. That could either be one of the greatest calls that we have seen in Pro Series history, or it could be a very disappointing start to Season 17. Meanwhile, Castorino, the reigning champion, trying to see what he can do. You can see the fight as well between Walsingham and Jardier up in front. Jardier holds on, and so does Nicholas Huben, negotiating these tricky conditions. Each lap, the circuit will get just a little bit drier, but it's not very hot. We're only looking at 17 degrees air temperature. This track is not drying out very quickly whatsoever. Scraps further down the order as well between Mex, Foch and Manar, and looks like Magic Mex might have got the better of the two Mustangs through in towards the right-hander. Malmedy, yellow flags, I think, for someone in the background. I'm not sure who that was. Samir Foch down the inside into the right-hander contact, and that's Manar around. And unfortunately, Iemelo's fantastic progress through the field absolutely halted by the roadblock of Philip Manar. Very unfortunate stuff there, but he continues on. Not too much damage on board that car, I wouldn't think, but that is frustrating stuff for the Italian driver who's making his way up through the order, as is Bruto in the number 36 car. 11 positions gained for him as he makes his way past the Frenchman of Valentine. Let's go. Where is George Boothby? So this is George Boothby at the moment. He's a little bit in no man's land, but I'm interested. Well, I wouldn't exactly say we have a brief moment of calm, but no one is quite on fire. I lied. Everyone's on fire. There's Valentine has gone around over a piff-paff contact, I think, slightly further up the order. We've also got squabbles with Samir and Matteo once again, with Eric Del Fanta going slow. I wonder, is Del Fanta, he's down 15 positions, surely he's on those dry tyres as well. Traditionally, the yellow sidewall on the tyre is an indicator of slicks over wet, but it hasn't always proven to be fully correct. But based on that, you can see how tentative he is on the lap. So there is definitely a split in strategy here as it stands. Jardier has broken away at the front of the field, but we'll go on board. Valentine is also on dries as well. We'll go on board with some of these guys in just a moment. And let's see, I think this is another story here. Kevin Tadai, I think you can see just on the traction alone out of the bus stop chicane, he is losing out to Bruno on those wet tyres. So can they make it 20 minutes in and still be an advantage with just over 5 minutes into this race? I'm not convinced that dry tyres at the start is the right call here. I'm not convinced they are at all, because by the time that they become effective, they're going to be, they're going to be very heavily outside of their operating window. These drivers are going to be sliding around a lot in these slippery conditions. That's going to cause all sorts of graining. By the time that those dry tyres get into a good phase, I don't think that they're going to be in fantastic condition. And right now, we're not seeing any more rain on the horizon. So, if there was going to be rain near the end of the race, maybe if you could then make a late transition in the pit window from those dying dries onto the wet tyres for the final 20 minutes or so, maybe it'd be good. But exactly, there's no benefit if it doesn't rain anymore. So I'm not sure that was the right call. Very, very brave call, especially this early on in the season. I'm surprised that George would make that call, because the vast majority of people in these sorts of conditions you would have anticipated would have gone for the wet tyres. And it's consistency over the course of a season. If you do basically the same as everyone else, even if there's a couple of drivers that get it right, make a blinder of a decision, and they end up on the podium, you end up P4, that's not the difference maker in a championship. What is a difference maker is if your rival sits inside the top 5 and you're down outside the top 30 because you tried to make a bold call. And, oh, well, I just guess I'll shut up because the rain is coming in 30 minutes. Okay, we'll see how this one plays out then, shall we? Oh, I love the Pro Series. I also love Spa-Francorchamps because it does deliver very interesting scenes. So, 30 minutes time then. Let's try to work this out. 30 minutes time. That's going to be right near the end of the pit window. It's going to be very light rain, though. Is it really? this is going to be wonderfully interesting. I can't wait to see how this plays out. I think I'm going to stop trying to work out how it's going to go, and I'm going to just do what I can vaguely do and just shout into the microphone as these cars go around and put on some great action. Update then at the front of the pack. Jardier leading by a second over Aidan Walsingham. Consistent laps from the pair of them last time around, but it right now does seem to be the Honda that has a slight advantage. Finn Dimble, great job from it. A little bit squirrely on the exit of Radion then, but is holding on to that position for now. Nicholas Uber continuing to be under pressure from the reigning champion. The number 5 car, seeing that Nissan GTR in his rearview mirrors. Nissan pretty speedy in a straight line, maybe not quite full Mustang speed, but does tend to be up there with some of the best. Also, due to being a slightly older car, and also having a bit of a less comprehensive aero package than your modern equivalents, it does tend to then benefit from having less in the way of a bop applied to it from a weight and ballast point of view. If you're new to the world of BOP and bop in GT3 racing, effectively, of course, you have all of these cars from different manufacturers, and each circuit, no matter how much homologation you do in the regulations, there are going to be some cars that are inherently stronger than others. So you have something called BOP, which stands for BOP and Balance of Performance, and that is effectively a ballast-generated system that then, also with other fine-tuning in terms of horsepower, stuff like that, looks to try to bring cars into alignment so they more or less produce the same lap time and give everyone a fair, equal opportunity to go for race wins. Sometimes that works really well, sometimes it works less well because there will just be platforms that work well in certain tracks and conditions. Now, of course, we have a wonderful team over at LFM driven by you guys as the community, where this is actually a community-made BOP, which has then been further tweaked beyond the baseline BOP that we have in the world of ACC to try to make it as equal as possible. And big thank you for all that effort. A rare mistake from Nicholas Huber, gets it all wrong on the braking zone, just catches the white line on the outside of the circuit, locks up, and that allows Mr. Consistency himself, Castorino, to go on through and gain the position. And now we'll look towards those podium positions of Finn Zimble and Walsingham, with Jardier just slightly eking away over these opening laps of the race. Barely 10 minutes in to this one, and we have a very interesting session playing out. Iemelo continuing to try to go for his impressive charge through the field. How far is he up? 14 positions now, and now he's even 3 wide on the exit. And McLaren, not exactly the strongest in straight line performance, but he surely will be the bravest under brakes. Bruto trying to put up a good contest on the inside. That Bentley will struggle to get the power down, though apparently so will Iemelo. Let's go on board with him. In fact, you can just about see the Bentley come across that window in towards the view now. Petzold just behind, lifting, trying to get some extra downforce on the front end of that Aston Martin. And now, how do they fare through this puddle? The McLaren surely will struggle a little bit through here. He does. Far easier to bottom out this car, and he skates over the surface water. But look at the straight line speed he's got. Iemelo surely going to send it from downtown. He does. In towards Lake Como goes. Fantastic dive. Makes it stick. And the Italian, who has been a race winner here in the Pro Series in the past, makes up another position and continues his charge up through the field. Still plenty of time for carnage to take place, strategies to have effect, and a fantastic move. TC0, absolutely the meta that we do seem to have lived in now for a fair old while. Of course, low TC levels was typically all the way to be quickest, but whilst there are still some cars that use just a little bit of TC, quite often the Mustang, for example, that will do. Cars that usually won't will be those that get ones that either have a very poor TC system, like the McLaren, that's also quite low power as well. The Bentley just has a terrible TC system. It just annihilates all power to the rear tyres whenever you get a vague amount of slip, and that car kind of relies on that rear slipping. Fun fact, is the only car in the whole of ACC. That's a little bit of a sneaky dive from Renault Coots. Half commitment on the entry, but a little bit of contact through the next couple of corners, and it could be the Aston Martin of David Naskadashvili in the number 14 car to capitalize. Not quite, though. In towards Lassoz. Oh, that was brave. And trying to sweep around the pair of them was the BMW of Oystein Brenham and Sasha Vassner, I do believe, as they fly on up towards Eau Rouge. And let's see how it all plays out over the next few corners. So we go on board the rear diffuser of the Audi V10, screaming all of those cylinders. But the Bentley has fantastic straight line speed. This is Sasha Vassner gaining towards the inside line. He will go, surely opens up an opportunity. Watching on behind is the BMW of Oystein Brenham in the West Competition racing car. Lovely livery machine in that one. Sir Sullivan trying to hold back the Aston Martin just up ahead and squeeze to the apex of Albany was the Bentley, who's now got pressure from behind. Better exits from the Norwegian, who tries to go the long way around in towards Brussels. Can't do it. And then through in towards the left-hander of Jackie Itt's corner. Fantastic battling scenes here from all of his guys. And this is what you love to see and what we so often see in the world of the Case King Pro Series. Doesn't matter where in the field you are treated to very, very intense battle. The fight for the podium is also starting to heat up. Finn Zimble in the Lamborghini, so impressive so far this race, but he is coming under increasing pressure from a man that lives on the podium. Castorino, mega record last season and in his previous championship winning season, of course, as well. That was an exit half from Abalazzi. Can he carry enough momentum? It's going to be tricky, though, to stay this close through. Blanchimont surely goes for a little bit of lift. More commitment, I would have thought. Actually, he's got a fantastic run. Correction on the exit. How brave does he feel? The answer's victory! Oh, and you can see it was going to happen. Closed in towards the braking zone, and Hubin's around. Oh, and he almost drives into the side of Leon Burns, his teammate. It's all gone horribly wrong in towards the bus stop. And that, well, let's just see what the stewards make of that incident. From my perspective, I would have said that would have been classed as moving in the braking zone. And Abalazzi, I'm sure, will be wanting to reclaim that position pretty quickly. Leon Byrne gains 2 positions, says thank you very much, and tries to break off into the distance, but that gap started closing. At that point, Abalazzi had already committed to a very brave entry. And then especially in these wet conditions, there's nothing you can do. There's no grip. I'll tell you what, though. Look at the rain in 30 minutes' time. So, my goodness, there definitely is a second batch of rain on the way before the end of this race, but I think we've got too much carnage and action to keep up with the time being. It is bump drafting, shake and bake style between the 2 cars on the inside, trying to make their way past Naskadashvili in the Aston Martin, the Gladys competition car, losing out, but from 1 does he lose out against 2? It's contact at Malmedy. Renault Cooch can sneak on through it. It's found the contact. Oh, and he just about holds on to it. 35, actually doing a little bit of self-righting. Loses 1, 2, maybe even 3 at this point. It's hard to hold it around the outside there, especially in the wet weather conditions. Manages to put it all together. And oh, so okay, apparently there was a little bit of an audio crisis. Was that the was it the game or the microphone? That's have to let me know. And what happened there? Hopefully, fingers crossed, we are A-okay and all good to go for the remainder of the race. Okay. Unfortunately, interesting, it didn't sound wrong to me at this end. I'm not quite sure what happened there. But unfortunately, I don't think there's too much I can do. Keep you posted, and if it does start to go into various shenanigans, I'll try to see what I can do to about that one. I might be limited, though. Absolutely, I think, yeah, the advice earlier on was putting diesel inside the PC was very much for the purpose of trying to stop the PC from annihilating itself from an FPS crisis. Smart, large grid, and wet weather. It is a rather deadly combination, but it's chugging along just about okay at the moment. For those that don't know, I run all of this actually on just the one PC and the one monitor, so it's quite an interesting view that I have. Everything is a bit of a Tetris puzzle presented to me, but I wouldn't change it for the world. That Aidan Walsingham has put in some stonking laps over the last few minutes and has seriously started to close down the margin to Jardier, who maybe is the track It's starting to get a bit drier, is starting to struggle. But I tell you what, he'll be maybe a combination of pleased and also concerned about those weather transitions on the horizon, because on the one hand, he'll, I think, want the rain, and he'll also want the rain when it matters in that end game of the race and trying to go for the race win. Of course, it doesn't matter how many laps you lead over the first 59 minutes and 59 seconds, you need to be leading that at that very final moment. So he'll be quick at the end of this race, presumably, but what do you do in terms of strategy here? Because pit window is going to open in a couple of minutes' time as we look to see George Boothby. What sort of times is he doing? So, yeah, he did a 2:31 last time around. He is 7 seconds off the pace of Jardier. So even if those slick tyres, by some miracle, come into good effect over the course of the next 20 minutes, he's then going to have rain about 5 minutes after that. And with that level of intensity from what we're looking at in the final 10 minutes of the race, you're not going to want to be on slicks at that time. This gamble for the likes of George Boothby, Valentine Barrier, and I think Sherry Sullivan, other drivers as well, simply has not paid off. And those slicks might be warming up now, but I just don't see that it's going to be. You know, we're not even in green conditions yet or anything like that. We're still damp. I just don't see that it's going to be a good, useful strategy. I mean, these wet tyres, for the guys that have been on the wets, they'll have an interesting, different trouble that they'll end up facing, because it'll be a case of, well, when do you pit? Do you go early? Do you try to get a fresh set of wet tyres to take to the end? Probably not. Does anyone go early and try to go on the slicks to the end? I find it unlikely in these current circumstances. If you go middle of the race, you're going to get some graining in the early part of that stint. And George's chat thinks he's going to, well, okay, so I've got the entirety of Mr. Yukong's Monkeys chat, or just Yukong now, I think, nowadays, versus me. Well, we'll see how it all plays. I'll be interested to get your thoughts, actually. What are your predictions? Do we think it's going to go the likes of Jardier, Walsingham, Zimble, Castorino in this lead battle? Do we think those who have risked it on those dry tyres at the beginning come back through and win? We'll have to wait and see. That's how it all plays out. But, personally, I just can't see it's going to be a race-winning strategy, especially when you look at the gaps between drivers at the moment. If we go for... can I do that? Oh, I can't do that. Why can't I do that? I don't know why I can't do that. Anyway, one way or another, I think the gap between the likes of George Boothby and those at the front of the field, where he's in 25th position at the moment, it's looking to me like it's probably about 25 seconds, something like that. I mean, you know, of course, you know, Spa is an extremely long pit lane. Keep an eye out for track limit warnings. If anyone gets a drive-through, stop and go 30-second penalty, that is definitively game over in a 60-minute race around here. It is, will pretty much almost put you the best part of a lap down. But, you know, it just has an awful lot of time to try to gain back over, you know, the next 20 minutes or so. You know, maybe I'll be wrong. George Boothby is the winningest driver in the Pro Series for a reason. He is also a champion for a reason. I'm an idiot for the most part, so I could have it very much the wrong way around, but we'll have to wait and see. We've got some bets in the chat about Aidan Walsingham potentially being a race winner here today, and he very much could be. That Aston Martin, over the next 20 minutes or so, and then when we blend back into the rain, could be very quick. But I'll tell you what, he is under a lot of pressure. Don't rule out this man, Finn Zimble. The first time we've ever seen him at the pointy end of the grid is absolutely laying it down this evening in this Lamborghini, and right now seems to be in a place where this car is performing very, very well. Jardier struggling at this phase of the race. Finn Zimble with nothing to lose, trying to go all the way around the outside. Can he make this one stick? It'll be a mighty move if he can. Jardier escaping in the distance. They clash on the exit. Finn Zimble trying to do what's the likes of earlier on. It was Huben versus Ambulazzi. Ambulazzi couldn't make it work. Can Finn Zimble? The battle continues towards Lassos. He's got to be careful as Castorino sizing up the Lamborghini. And Finn Zimble, we've seen him in the world of the Pro Series before, but this is a different animal. This is a very different animal. The Raging Bull is absolutely flying in these conditions. He's got to be careful not to push it too hard, but this is an opportunity. He's got a mighty run. So is Castorino, though. Does he look to go with the Lamborghini driver? He doesn't. The momentum in favor of that Nissan GTR, covering the inside, covering the outside, is Walsingham. And Castorino, with that straight line speed, makes his way past. This is what Castorino is so good at. He reads situations. He never loses his cool. Even when he's sent around in the early stage of a race and fighting for a championship, at no point does he ever get in a flap. He is just calm and collected, and that is why he has been such a force to be reckoned with in his 2 championship winning campaigns, which effectively have been the only campaigns that he's been even present for the entire season. So his finishing record is very impressive, and you can see he's also now starting to put some pressure onto Aidan Walsingham. Could it be another masterclass in tricky conditions from the Italian driver, or could it be a surprise from the likes of George Boothby? How are the lap times looking now? 2:29. He's still slower. He's still 4 to 5 seconds a lap slower. I'm willing to accept I could still be wrong, but I'm really struggling to see how I could be wrong at this stage. But we'll see how it all plays out. Pit window is open for another 16 minutes. And you can see that rain, when it does hit towards the tail end of the race, it's going to be heavy. And it's going to be continuously heavy. It's not looking like it's increasing in intensity particularly, but it is going to be very significant. It's going to be with us for a good few laps. I mean, of course, 10 minutes at most tracks, that could be worth anything around six laps of a race. Here, looking at least based on the current pace, at 4 laps, and there we go. The first man to blink, along with Abalazzi, is the reigning champion himself. Castorino starting to make progress. He comes into pit lane then. Well, this is very interesting. This is very interesting indeed. What on earth do you do with strategy at this point of the race? You've got 35 minutes left to go. Now, if you were planning on taking wets to the end, surely you would want to go on to them as late as you feasibly thought you could without losing track position, because otherwise, they're just as the track does dry up over these next 10 minutes or so, you're just putting unnecessary graining, unnecessary wear, and then when it does get wet again, those tyres are not going to be in a very healthy state. But equally, I can't see the... I mean, unless he's going to decide to go on dries to the end of the race and then try to get those tyres to last in the rain, this will be very interesting. We've got multiple greats of the Case King Pro Series right now that could be looking to do polar opposite strategies. So many curveballs in this race. What a way to kick off Season 17. If you are enjoying this one and looking forward to seeing how it plays out, do consider giving the channel a follow, because my goodness, this is an absolute blinder, and I'm sure that as we look forward to the next 11 races of the season, that it will certainly continue on. P1 and P2 have to pit because of fuel. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Of course, when you are making a tyre compound change, any fuel that you end up putting into the car is absorbed in that time. So effectively, any refueling that you do won't end up changing anything about that 30-second tyre changeover in the pit lane. Of course, the overall pit time is based upon your entry, your exit, and then that time spent throughout the pit lane itself. Why is Jordan not driving LFM? He does. If you're referring to Jordan Sherratt, I believe he did actually sign up to this, but he hasn't been as present as some other drivers, so he's been lower rating, so he's actually in split 2 or 3 or something along those lines. I've got too much going on, I'm afraid, at that moment. Oh, there we go. Thank you for clarification, Andy, there. And there you go. So Walsingham was trying to apply the pressure just before both these cars boxed, but could not make his way past Jardier, and he comes into the pits with Nicholas Huben then. Was it Huben? No, it was Leon Burns, excuse me, in the background. Also, confirmation there that Castorino has gone for wet tyres. I kind of felt like he would surely have to. I mean, the track is still damp. The tyres will survive okay, maybe. The rain, so we've got rain in 10 minutes time. I don't know. I would have personally, if I was, okay, we'll come on to it in a minute, but I've made some pretty stupid strategy calls in what time I did in terms of racing on ACC, but we'll circle back to that. If it was me, I would have looked to have just maybe stretched out this stint just a bit further, unless Amadeo had to pit for fuel as well. So, you know, there is no universe where you don't go wet. Exactly. I mean, his tyres are already hot. Yeah, but these new ones are also going to be hot. At least if you stay out a bit longer, you can then go on to, you know, fresh, wet tyres, keep those in good conditions at the end of the race, and then be strong in those final laps. There's a fantastic little squabble between these three cars. Vassner, Frey, and Brenner, toe-to-toe. Porsche, Boatley, and Beamer, side by side. The Boatley has got away for just a couple of apexes as Frey squeezes out the BMW. Hard racing between these two. Because we saw some interesting shenanigans involving some of these cars earlier on in the race. Rain in 10 minutes time then. So, yeah, so we won't be on those tyres for long, but that kind of, to me, in my mind anyway, just kind of goes further to that very point. As, let's see, as Abalazzi, how on earth has Abalazzi ended up in front of Castorino? What has happened here? And what on earth is going on? These guys, very, very slow compared to these on fresh tyres. You can see also maybe this undercut strategy, maybe that's the play. And there we go, as Abalazzi is into the lead. Abalazzi goes into the lead. He's made his way past Castorino. He's made his way past Walsingham. So, well, there we go then. And how Diamolo get plus 35 seconds? Oh my goodness, well, we'll come back to that in a minute, but there we go. All of a sudden, it's all shaken up. Jardier is behind Walsingham. So everything has absolutely turned on its head as we've gone through the pit window. So Abalazzi jumps into the lead, and he has stopped. He has definitively stopped. But somehow, he was in pit lane for 5 seconds less than anybody else. And then, did he get a drive-through? I don't know if anyone could confirm that. Or did he speed in the pit? I just don't understand how he was in the pit lane for such a little amount of time. We'll have to come on to that one. You don't have to change tyres. Oh, well, we've got every strategy in the book now, haven't we? So we've got... Right. So we've got Abalazzi, who has gone out on the same set of wet tyres that he had previously. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, reminding the idiot behind the microphone. So, he hasn't changed his tyres. Castorino, Walsingham, Jardier, Burnt, all of those guys have changed their tyres, but Castorino has undercut the whole bunch, so the reigning champion, well, like I say, showed me up in that regard. So, and look at those fresh tyres. The pace is definitely there. How it was that Abalazzi still has such good pace over those other cars who are in front of him, because that was technically 4 positions. And yeah, so I could see on the delta between them there was a 5-second advantage in favour of Abalazzi. So now it's the case of, can he get those tyres to last in a competitive way to the end? Or once the rain comes back, will those tyres be strong enough? But Jardier losing that position in the pits, and Castorino looking like he might be on the move already. And Castorino, the 2-time Pro Series champion, has said it could be a masterclass from the Italian, and right now it's very much looking that way, because whilst it's not for the net lead right now, it is for the effective lead in this race as more cars come into pit lane. And to put it into perspective, Castorino has already pitted, of course, as he comes through Eau Rouge and Radion. Finn Zimble, where's he going to emerge? Because surely he's going to be a big loser in this. He's actually hasn't worked out too awfully. He might have a chance of holding on to this position from Charlie. Yay! He's a little bit too far away. So he slots in behind the Honda driver. Oh, I've lost internet. Oh, are we back? Please tell me we're back. Okay, well, we're sort of back, I think. I've had a little bit of an internet dropout. Hopefully... Oh, any moment now. Okay, well, I think we're sort of back, perhaps. Oh, there we go. We're getting there. We're certainly... we're certainly getting... I've briefly lost control of my timing, but... so I would love to say we'll go for a short intermission, but I can't. Now this is rather unfortunate. So... yeah, we've resumed normal ways. So, the good news is, that we are back. The bad news is I don't have control of my own camera anymore, which is rather disappointing. We'll try to make our way back towards the leaders for just a moment. And yeah, more diesel. That was the problem. I didn't put the diesel in. I went against your advice. So we'll try to at least make our way towards the pointy end of the grid if we can. I might need to do a little bit of a reset of things in just a moment. Apologies, everybody. At least we are somewhat back online. Okay, we're at least in the thick of the action. We'll stay here for the time being, and we'll see how it goes over the course of the next few laps, because Abelatsi, I have a feeling, is going to be overtaken by Aiden Walsingham in just a couple of laps' time. But Castorino, oh, that's a mistake there from Abelatsi, bit deep on the brakes. Gets it all wrong in towards the bus stop chicane. But Amadeo pulling out away in front as my camera has now switched to the car that I clicked on about half an hour ago. We'll try to see what Walsingham does in the background. Just go for the move. He goes for the move around the outside. Can't make it stick. And it'll be side-by-side action, I think, between the two Aston Martins as they make their way into shot on the inside. Is Walsingham going to be very brave stuff? He takes a position. Abelatsi has to back out of that one. And he goes in towards what is now net P2 in this race. You see more cars coming out of pit lane. There is Finn Zimble in the background as well, trying to make his way past Jardier. Seeing what he can do. I'm doing my best to try to keep up with all the action. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit hopeless right now with my camera controls since that little dropout. But you can see in the background squabbling away. Jardier, Zimble swapping for positions. I think the man that started on pole has held on to the position for the time being. But I'm going to just take, I think, now an executive decision to try to get all of this back online and together. So bear with me, everybody, for just a short moment. And hopefully we'll be back in control of things in just a second. But my goodness, what a turn of this race. So the undercut for Castorino working out in the end, and managing to get him towards the front end of the field. And that is a big blow to the likes of George Boothby, who, of course, has been the main... Of course, Sam Gascoigne, an amazing season last season. He's had a little bit of a tricky start today as well. So that's two of Amadeo's main challengers really starting off in a tricky spot. And I like I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm surprised that George Boothby went for that gamble, knowing those conditions, knowing how much of the field was likely to start on wets. To me, when you're in the championship fight, that's not necessarily a risk that you would likely take. But it was the route that he went down. We'll have to see how it plays out for him. Now, can I regain some of this control, or am I going to have to do a little bit more of a major restart? It looks to me like, unfortunately, the answer is yes. So we'll have to do a little bit of that in the background. Whilst we are going through this little short intermission, apologies for this side of things. But I do want to get your thoughts with all of the crazy action you've seen so far around Spa. How do you think in these final few moments of the race, is it going to play out? Do we think it is all sealed and done with in the way of going towards Amadeo Castorino, or could there be a surprise in the mix left to go? When we last were looking at the weather forecast, it was still very much looking like it was going to bring on intensive rain in the closing parts of the race. I see very little possibility of George Boothby recovering some of that lost time, because he has lost an immense amount of ground over the course of this race. He is only a few seconds up the road from Amadeo, and Amadeo has already served his stop and is going to be lapping quicker for most of the laps to come in this one. So for those that took that gamble, it does... we've got Castorino, no doubt. I think it's a fairly reasonable prediction in that regard to make, because he's often unstoppable at the best of times, let alone when he makes the right call, has the car hooked up. The only thing that I could see maybe maybe spoiling the party is that as that rain starts to intensify once again, you know, Castorino at the beginning of the race, maybe he's been patient, maybe he was saving his tyres, but he didn't look quite as purely competitive as some of the other drivers around the circuit. So, you know, could it be the case that as we get further on into the race, that, you know, those that were that have a setup that maybe is more dialed in to those wet weather conditions, that rain starts to intensify, will they be the cars that are then in a better better position to take a race win at the end of this one? We'll have to wait and find out. There's 2.5 minutes left of the pit window. So those that are still out on track, of which I believe there are a handful, there is still the opportunity to swap around and put on a new set of boots onto the car. And now I'm just trying to see, can I reconnect with this one? Okay, so I think we're sort of starting to get back in business. The only small issue, other than my voice, apologies, the only small issue is that I don't seem to have any game sound. Now, I'm not quite sure why that is. I do at least have control of my camera again, so that's all my cameras. So we'll see. Has that made its way over to this side of things? And I do believe it has, which is rather unfortunate. Why do I not have any game sound whatsoever? Oh, okay. I think, for some reason, now the stream has game sound, and I don't. If someone could confirm that for me in the chat, I don't mind surviving on mute and silence over the course of the rest of the race, but as long as you guys have some sound to work with from the game, you do indeed. Well, that is wonderful. I'm not quite sure where everything's blown up on my end, but we will proceed nonetheless and see how things go towards the end of this race and catch up with our main fight for the race win. So, Castorino then, sitting P2 on the track at the moment. Delfanta is the last car to serve his stop, as meanwhile, this is Avalazzi and Fitzsimmons going toe-to-toe. Avalazzi dropping down now. And we've also got Campanella, who hasn't stopped either. Delfanta with a 10-second time penalty. That's not going to help the driver that is taking, of course, a rather ambitious call to the tail end of the race, as Nicholas Huben trying to bounce back from some of his shenanigans earlier on as well. And see as he makes his way past Avalazzi, who's rather bold call of staying out on those tyres, I don't think has worked. You can see this is the rain that we're contesting with to the end of the race, as there's a bit of a slide from Avalazzi there, losing a chunk of momentum. The Ferrari going towards the inside. You can see up ahead as well, that is Jardier trying to go towards the inside of Campanella. There's contact on the entry to Blanchimont. They both go wide, as Huben manages to get past in the background. Somehow they keep it all together. Bold move from Jardier. A very fast and tricky part of the circuit, especially in these conditions. And now, Fitzsimmons, a driver that started well out of position from where expectations would have been, as breaking news, George Boothby takes wet tyres. That, yes, whilst we have had quite the series of shockers over the course of this race and surprises, that unfortunately is probably one of the most predictable elements, and we'll see. How much time has he got to make up? He's actually still, well, he's in 25th position, but he's also 33 seconds away from P24. Which is, I think, rather indicative of how his slick tyres for the first part of the race actually played out. Like I say, he was lapping 5 seconds slower. I mean, it's obviously it's so much easier when you've got a much bigger picture to work with. Campanella now also drops down. I wonder if he was a driver that's, I don't know if he's done his stop. Unfortunately, all of my counters for pit stops, of course, have reset. Pit window has now closed, but I wonder if he didn't take new tyres either. As I think for those who are maybe trying to hop their way further up the top 10 where some of the gaps was bigger, it was a pretty fair and good strategy to do that. But I think for the most part, not the most competitive of ways to go about it. We'll see how it plays out. Also see how George Boothby's pace stacks up. Of course, he'll be on relatively fresh tyres compared to a lot of these guys, and those where there's been this transition into the heavier rain for longer might start to suffer with elements of graining. Boothby's tyres will be in a good spot, so maybe he can work a miracle, but 18 minutes left on the clock. looking at around 7 laps remaining, something along those lines, and a 33-second gap to P24. I think it's fair to say that this will be a race to forget. And for both of Amadeo's main championship rivals from last season, that this is a day that certainly has, will certainly put a major spring in the step of the reigning champion and the newly crowned 2-time champion of the Case King Pro Series. Is there a drop round? So there is 2 drop rounds in the season. So mathematically, it's possible for this race not to affect anything. But you know, we tend to see it's very rare that we see seasons where 4. Oh my goodness. That's okay. Well, that maybe does change things just a little bit. That is certainly a change for the books in that regard. I was unaware of that change. So if we have that many drop rounds, well, maybe it's not so bad after all. But consistency still is ultimately what is going to win you titles. And I'm surprised that this early on in the championship, that taking that sort of gamble was something that those drivers that were very much in the thick of the action for the championship victory last season, I'm surprised it was a gamble that many went for, when you know that consistency is the thing that separated you from the driver that ended up taking the crown. So it's very easy to be critical when you're in a very privileged position of seeing everything from above, seeing everything play out, and also the benefits of hindsight as well. But it was, definitely a surprise and a call that I must admit I was unsure was going to play out well from the beginning of the race. But we'll see how it goes, of course, for the remainder of the season. Still 11 races after this to turn the championship on its head. What a championship it is likely shaping up to be. If you are enjoying all the crazy action, and thank you to those who were patient during those bits of downtime moments, thankfully we are back online and together. If you are enjoying the wonderful action of the Pro Series and you haven't already, do consider giving a follow to the channel so you can stay in touch with all of the amazing battling that will continue to take place. And here we go, we've got some side-by-side stuff between O'Sullivan and Amalazzi, and O'Sullivan on those fresh wet tyres is going to blast his way on by the struggling Aston Martin. I have a feeling that Leon Burnt in due course will be doing the same to the likes of Campanella, one of the other Nissan GTRs out on circuit. Just support there for Shay in the chat. Do give a cheer to your favourite drivers, those that you're cheering on, especially in like the likes of your teammates and so on and so forth. Always lovely to see the positivity in the chat as well. Fantastic run out of turn 15 for Leon Burnt. That was almost like the likes of, if you've ever seen that WEC overtake from many years ago, I think it was Degrassi versus another car at the time. I can't remember what the other prototype was. And Shay O'Sullivan, capitalising on that wide moment from Leon Burnt there, says thank you very much and makes his way up into P7. And surely, with the pace of that GTR and the confidence that this man is showing right now behind it, like-for-like machinery, but very much a different contest in terms of tyres, he should be able to dispatch Campanella in no time at all. Even with those overtakes, in actual fact, immediately diving to the inside, gets it done under braking, and that's P6 for the Visual Esports driver. So I'm sure that'll make drivers, make supporters of that man very happy in the chats as he storms his way up into P6. 2 positions gained in just as many corners, and very well deserved of that as well. He charges away, and that's a very convenient break point to help put some distance between himself and Leon Burnt, because of course Campanella cannot carry that same sort of speed and momentum through Eau Rouge when he has the GTR in front of him, whom of course teammates of Campanella and Shay O'Sullivan, who is now going to act as a little bit of a blocker over the course of his next few corners. Leon Burnt, I'm sure, will get a position done eventually, but Campanella playing the team game here, allowing Shay to make his way on through and then start to eke out a gap. I tell you what, also talking about gaps, though the bets around Aidan Walsingham potentially winning this race, they are very much not off the cards at this point in time whatsoever, because as we see at this point, as you see on the leaderboard, 2.6 seconds in the gap between them, and last time around it was just slightly in favour of the British driver. The pace advantage does seem to be with the Aston Martin, it sounds right now, and that rain is getting more and more intense, and with that intensity it is going to bring in the likes of Walsingham, the likes of Jardier, maybe even Finn Zimble getting a bit stronger towards the tail end of this race as well. So I have to see what he can deliver over the course of this race, and if he can put himself in a race winning spot by the end of it. Certainly what we'll be looking to do. So maybe it's not all said and done yet. Definitely a good choice of strategy from Castorino, but also bearing in mind his tyres would have gone through a little bit of that graining effect. They are a little bit older compared to the Aston Martin, the Honda, that are in hot pursuit. So maybe there is opportunity, not quite as much so as an opportunity, for Leon Burns to storm his way around the outside. It's a tricky move to pull off his contact. I think just a little bit of a lock-up. No, oh, that is Eric Gessel into the pit lane. Could only assume that's for a drive-through penalty of sorts for corner cutting, as meanwhile Finn Zimble as well having or unfortunately could be losing out here by Nicholas Huber, who sweeps all the way around the outside. Bold move from the Ferrari driver. Amongst all that, I do actually need to have a bit of a gander towards the penalty situation at some point. Oh my goodness. Well, stewards have been rather busy. It would not be a standard Pro Series race if we didn't have the stewards coordinating 1,000,001 inquiries. Finn Zimble trying to look for an opportunity to maybe come back at the Ferrari that dispatched of him and that P4 position, but there is just no straight line speed on board the Raging Bull at this moment in time. We've had warnings, we've had penalties. We'll go through the main penalties for everybody. So, a 15-second time penalty for number 13 car at the early stages of this race. And who was that car? I have a feeling that they have left the server. 34, that was Lynn Iverson that got a drive-through penalty for causing a mass crash on the opening lap of the race. 10-second time penalty for the number 7 car. That was Eric Del Fanta for contact on lap 1. 5-second time penalty for the number 28 car. That was Schneckenberger, who has just gone to pit lane. I'm not quite sure. Something else may have just happened to the Ford Mustang driver, so we'll have to wait and see if there's anything that pops up in the steward's room around that. 10-second time penalty for an unsafe rejoin from the number 24. That was Justin Stubenrauch. 5-second time penalty for number 13. And do I know who that was? I don't know if I know who that was. I don't know who that was. And we'll see. What else do we have here? And it was quite the time, wasn't it? And a 15-second time. That must have been Iamolo, based on the numbers. So he got a 15-second time penalty for a collision on lap 2. He got a 5-second time penalty for a collision on lap 1, and another 15-second time penalty for a different collision on lap 1 as well. So caution can be a blessing. And that also may somewhat go to explain the rather significant progression he made in the opening couple of laps in the race. Unfortunate stuff there for the Italian. I'm sure he will learn from it and bounce back in a future round. We know how competitive, how speedy, and how quick he can be, as that is O'Sullivan now dispatching of Finn Zimble, who was very slow last time around. He's going to try to go side by side on the exit, but Shea O'Sullivan is right now your fastest car on circuit, a 225.2 from the Visceral Esports Nissan GTR. And with that pace, he was 1.3 seconds quicker than Nicholas Huben, and that's the gap between himself and Huben. With the amount of laps we've got to go, we could see O'Sullivan make his way on to the podium, because Jardier then is not too far up the road. Amadeo seems to have got himself dialed in at this point in time. Campanella now battling a very aggressive sweep across the nose from Naskadashvili, but he makes his way on through. But O'Sullivan absolutely flying right now in that number 23 GTR. It could seriously be a threat to the podium. What a drive it would be from him. And I think he went a little bit later in the pits, I do believe. He was one of the last to go. And so, we are maybe seeing those consequences of those who went a bit on the earlier side, suffering a bit in terms of graining. Also, the rain is continuing to intensify. Jardier Super's getting maxed out when it's very wet. Well, it may be the case, but if he wants to do something super and convert that pole position into a race win, he's going to really have to dial it up in just a short moment, because 8.5 minutes left on the clock. We're looking then at about 4. So we'll have 4 laps to go in this one. So he would need to be catching the likes of Amadeo by a second a lap to even get close in that sort of time. Unless there's a mistake, unless Walsingham does something special, but he's got 4 seconds to find towards the front himself. But I'll tell you what, so Sullivan is absolutely mincing his way through these cars up ahead. Next target, Nicholas Human. Let's go on board with the Nissan GTR. I can't hear it, but I'm sure you can, and it makes a lovely noise as it shifts its way through the gears. That's a satisfying clunk as he makes his way up through in towards next turn, as somebody's had a moment over at That's Dennis Adler, and diving down the brakes. That's that vicious move. Can he get it done? He can indeed. That is confidence at its best in the GTR, and I don't think as they make their way up towards Eau Rouge that there is anything that Nicholas Human can do about it. So the next point in question then is, can O'Sullivan get to the podium before the clock hits 0? 2:26.0 on the last lap, but now he's got some clean air. He was doing 25s before that, but of course the track is getting slower. He was half a second quicker than Jardier, half a second quicker than Castorino. Walsingham struggled on that last lap, so maybe he was strong in the transitioning conditions, but pure out-and-out rain performance, not so good. Jardier you'd expect to be quick as well. He gained 0.7 of a second last lap. Sasha Vassner has just found his way past Abalazzi, where now, with the rain intensifying, the tread on those tyres that have been there since the start of the race are really going to be struggling now. Vassner pulling away. Very soon will be past Campanella, I am sure. And always time Brenham, in fact, trying to make his way on through, almost towards the outside, in towards Jackie Ick's corner. Surely a move that's not going to happen quite there, but he could get it even on the traction race on the exit of the left. Has to be patient here. So is Vassner up ahead in that big bad Boatley. Campanella trying desperately hard to keep it all together. Renault Coots on the charge as well in the Audi in the rear view mirror. Brenham sneaking up the inside. He's given the room by Abalazzi. A lot of room, in fact. He makes his way on through. Renault Coots fancies a piece of it as well. So does Carl Japor in the number 17 Aston Martin, as a car that for just a couple of laps led this race. Looked like they had made potentially what could have been a very competitive strategy call, but similar to a few in this race, has not been able to bring it together. George Boothby impressively has taken a chunk of time. I mean, he was 33 seconds behind P24. He's now up into P24 and 16 seconds behind 23rd place. But I think in the grand scheme of things, there'll be very little change from then on. That's Campanella, Brenham and Vassner side by side. Brenham, the one that's on the move as it's Stan Abalazzi losing out the Renault Coots. There's contact in the background. That is the Boatley, oh dear, and half beached over the curve. Vassner then almost spins again. Michael Frey is going to wonder what on earth was taking place then. And he's taken one. Will he take two on the run in towards La Source? He might well do. It depends how much confidence does he has as of right now. But that was unfortunate there. Centre round on the exit. So easy to do in these conditions, and at that corner as well. It's a very, very tricky one to say the least. They're now up in towards Eau Rouge. Frey looks like he's got the job done there and will charge on up ahead. Brenham now continuing to make his way up to the back of Campanella with an almighty storming run towards pit path. Can he make it stick around the outside? Carjapor's trying to do the same. That's a big slide from the West Competition Racing car. Carjapor is hung out to dry. Well, doesn't seem appropriate in these conditions, but on the outside of the circuit, as a Renault coup says, where on earth is Carjapor? Where's he gone? He's disappeared entirely for me. Oh, there he is. Oh, I'm not quite sure what happened there. Anyway, Renault Coots managing to maintain position and get a little bit away. Oystein Brenham maintaining the pressure. And I can tell you now, Shea O'Sullivan, with 4 minutes left to go, so a couple of laps left, he is within half a second of Jardier. I would not even rule this man out from P2 at this point in time. It depends how quickly can he dispatch the man that started on pole position. Big slide for Brenham as Michael Frey has brought out the yellow flag. I think maybe an instant between himself and Abalazzi. I'm not sure actually if he's lost it all on his own. But Stuff happening there as Vashna and Abelatsi still close together. Renault now, the next one looking to dispatch of Campanella in that GTR. But we'll also keep an eye on this with Shea O'Sullivan. How much does he gain in towards the bus stop chicane? Because there's Jardier and there is Aidan Walsingham. He's only a second ahead. He's doing 2:28. Amadeo right now is surviving okay. His pace isn't great. He did 2:27. Same for these guys. And then O'Sullivan is just in another league. He's a second quicker than anybody else. And this is the power, I think, of just going that little bit later. Campanella really struggling now all the way around the outside is the Estonian. Kajapur might be looking to take two for the price of one on the exit. There'll be 2 more laps of this race to go. And Shea O'Sullivan, if he can get past Jardier in the next lap, there's a chance that he could manage to get past Walsingham as well. What a fantastic drive would be for him. He's getting extra power to turn the engine by not turning the wipers on. Perhaps so. Perhaps so. There's been weirder secrets in the world of sim racing, so it wouldn't be surprising. But you can see now O'Sullivan really trying to find something to make his way past a driver that would have been hoping for rain from start to finish. Yellow flag out for somebody. I think that's Hip out further down the order. And whilst the win looks like it may be off the cards, a Nissan GTR 1-2 is still possible. Can you believe we've gone from seasons gone by where you wouldn't have even ever anticipated anybody being in this car, let alone thinking that a 1-2 finish would be possible. But you can see hunting for an opportunity. Jardier, I have a feeling, that's a little bit of a mistake. Jardier might be saving Aidan Walsingham's P2 here, because with that pace difference between O'Sullivan and Walsingham, if he managed to get past on this lap, I would have suggested there was every reason that he could have got past Walsingham, who's been struggling even more so than the challenge that the number 23 finds in front of him at the moment. But maybe it's still on. In these tricky conditions on dying tyres, it can all be very quickly undone with a small mistake. Frey and Abelatsi. Frey has gone on through. I think surely with the tyre difference we'll be able to hold on. It looks like he will, as Abelatsi continues to fall on down. What does O'Sullivan do here? Surely, if he wants P2 in this race, he has to launch it into the bus stop chicane. Does he think about doing so? He does indeed. Jardier is going to respect it. Not quite. Gave a little bit of a car's width, but a little bit of a closing of the door then, and the gap opens back up as we head on to what will be the final lap of what has been a mighty race full of attrition. And for my vocal cords, my goodness, apologies everybody. Now we're getting all sorts of unreliability over the course of this stream. I'll tell you what, if you are new to the world of the Case King Pro Series, you have been treated to the full bundle. We've had carnage, we've had weather, we've had disconnections, we've had graphics failures, we've had restarts, and we've had my voice box explode and sound issues. So, if you wanted to know everything that you can come to look forward to over the course of the next 11 weeks in Season 17, there you go, all summarised in one nice little package for you. As O'Sullivan immediately back on the case, clean air through Eau Rouge, allowing him to close an awful lot of ground towards Jardier. You see how much pace he has got in that GTR, whether or not he can do anything about it on this final lap. Walsingham now too far up the road to really be a possibility of losing that P2 unless he makes a mistake. But this fight is very much still on. So is Renault Coutts versus Kajapur. This is for the final spot inside of the top 10. The Estonian in the Audi, as that's a big slide for the Aston Martin, as that's defensive from Jardier. O'Sullivan trying to go around the outside. He'll turn out the inside, scrambling for grip in the Honda just up, and you can see dancing with the wheel at every given moment. It might be a drag race towards the bus stop chicane, but he's got to keep his cool. He won't be able to make a move here, but he might be able to set one up. The yellow flag has come out for number 15. I'm not sure who that is for. That is Vanity Barrier, who is waiting for the leaders to come on through. But here we go then. One final titanic fight towards the bus stop chicane. Castorino making his way on through towards Blanchimont for the last time. And apparently no fuel for the likes of Valentine. So unfortunate miscalculation from him. Can O'Sullivan do anything in these final few corners? He's going to give it everything. Absolutely everything he's got, but I just don't think he's going to be able to. He might try and launch an attack at the end, but I think Jardier is just a little bit too far away. He will be indeed, but the reigning champion, the newly crowned two-time champion, storms to the top of the podium once again here in the opening round of Season 17 at Spa-Francorchamps. Amedeo Castorino adds to what is a very, very impressive series of statistics. Walsingham finishes P2. Jardier takes a podium for the first time in a while. The pole position not quite converted into that winning dream. And O'Sullivan with a great charge in the closing stage of the race barely misses out on a debut podium. Fantastic effort from him, though, as it would then be Huben, Zimbel, Bunt, Naskadashvili as well, finishing close to one another. We've got yellow flags out for the likes of Schneckenberger, as I think in terms of fights out on circuit, that is more or less done and dusted for everybody. But I said he was unflappable. He so often is. Amedeo Castorino, welcome back to the top step of the podium. He very rarely leaves it when he is in this championship, and it is oh so impressive in conditions like this. And it really, I think, when you see a race like this and how it caught out the likes of George Buthney, the winningest driver in Pro Series history, as a brief reminder to those and to those that are new, it's so easy to, under this level of pressure, make a judgment call that then just puts you on completely the back foot, doesn't work out, and then you've got all sorts of, issues that you need to then try to bounce back from. All sorts. It is such a tricky thing, and to do it so consistently, time after time. Amedeo, whether he's on the top step of the podium or just making another repeat visit to the podium, to do that so often over the course of a season is just immensely impressive and cannot be expressed enough. So fantastic stuff from the Italian driver who storms his way up there once again. We will hopefully grab drivers for an interview in just a short moment and get their thoughts and feelings on what has been a crazy evening of action once again. And whilst we have had a few technical issues here and there, we got to see all of the fabulous action that took place between some of the very best on the platform. Your race winner is sitting in the Discord server ready and waiting. We'll see if any of our other podium finishers of Aiden and Jardier are up there ready and waiting as well, because I'm sure they'll be pretty happy chappies still to get that podium result. But, of course, they would have wanted a little bit more from today when it is that close, when it feels like the opportunities for a race-winning result are on the cards. Is something where you're always going to be wanting just that little bit more, just that bit more to get something together. But unfortunately, when you've got tricky conditions like this and some fantastic talent that you are fighting amongst, it can be difficult to do so. But I'm sure these guys will be very pleased anyway, and they have all popped in. So we will look to bring them in for an interview as we look to hop along now. So a man returning to the podium for the first time in a while, had a fantastic pole position that I'm sure would have put a wonderful smile on his face. Didn't quite convert into race victory, but what a crazy, crazy race. Jardier, welcome back to the comms box, my good friend. How are you feeling after that one?
Yo, I'm great. I'm absolutely great. I was screaming in happiness because when LFM Pro opening round of the season getting podium, I can't be happier. I can't be happier.
And what a crazy way to start out as well. I mean, that race had everything. We had the tricky wet conditions blending into dryish, but not quite, trying to maintain the tyres, make the judgment calls. We saw as we get Judy, I think, on the other end of the mic, trying to, master all of that. And we saw how it caught out so many as well, gambling for slicks at times. How was it inside the cockpit of your car from a driving perspective and trying to make those judgments over the course of the race?
Oh, mate, I'm going to be honest. When I saw rain in 30 minutes, I thought it's over, the race for me. Like, my fuel engineer told me to take 70 liters and 40, and I took 45 to make it to the pit stop, basically, just to make it to the pit window. I don't know why I just didn't think about I basically thought the track will dry out in like 5 laps, or 6 laps. But Yeah, like I literally like I was saying it's over, and then the track, luckily for me, it wasn't drying that fast, and I managed to make it to the pits. And when I changed the tires for the new ones, it was still like quite wet. So I mean, it was like, yeah, my tires were red, but it wasn't the end of the world, you know. So I knew at that moment that we have a chance to like at least worst conditions point top 5. And then in the end, it was just going crazy. And yeah, I'm very, very happy with today. Like very, very happy.
I can imagine. And yeah, we saw a really good range of strategies. We saw the likes of Abalazzi deciding not to change the tyres, briefly put him in the lead. It's it didn't play out fantastically well in the end, but it was, you know, such a fantastic demonstration of, you know, when you've got these transitioning conditions of the different routes that you can look to explore and where the strengths and weaknesses are in the course of the race. But in the end, whilst fuel may have been a bit of a concern at times, you made the right calls to still salvage a fantastic result and have that podium. But it came along with a fantastic fight at the end. Shea O'Sullivan in that Nissan GTR, flying a second quicker than anyone in front of him in those closing laps. And, you know, as soon as he was away from your gearbox, within a couple of corners, he was back on it. How difficult was it to keep that GTR behind with those final couple of laps?
Yeah, it was really crazy because like for the race, I basically took dry setup with very high wing to like survive whatever is going to happen. But the tires in the end for me were like same for the Aiden and Amadeo. It were so bad, the tires, and Sullivan was so fast. I didn't see him at all, and then suddenly someone in my stream pointed out, look at the guy on P6, and I look and he did like a 1.2 second faster lap than us. And I was like, oh boy, this is a big problem. And yeah, I don't know how I hold. I think the only reason I hold up, I need to watch the replay, but we had a bit of a contact in the chicane, and I don't know. He like to me, it looked like he sent it from very big gap, and I just basically turned in. So I don't know like if it's my fault or not. But then he came back, and luckily in that last lap, he made a little tiny mistake. So it wasn't that crazy, but yeah, like 2 laps to go, I think it's over. But for a second, I thought he's gonna I thought I will let him go and he will catch Aiden and they might fight because he was so much faster. But yeah, he slowed down a bit when he was right behind me. So yeah, I decided to fight him to the end.
It was an absolutely fantastic fight to watch. Proper door-to-door action all the way to the finish, making that podium taste ever sweeter. Brilliant stuff to the end of that race. Of course, whilst I'm sure you'll be relishing in tonight's action with the pole and the podium to kick off the season, do you want to cast your mind over to next week at the Nürburgring for round 2 of the season? We'll have to see whether or not the weather plays out quite as crazy as it did for the evening. But any thoughts or feelings as to where you might find yourself and that Honda at that circuit in a week's time?
Hey, I'm gonna be honest. The Spa ended up for me way better than I expected. Like way better. So I'm just praying for rain for the rest of the season. Also, I'm not sure if I will race next week because I think it's the ACO release day. So I was really hoping that LFM will postpone the race. But like I'm not sure if I will actually race on the next week. But yeah.
Oh, so we'll have to. I mean, to be fair, as far as excuses go, that is a pretty fair and good one. It's obviously something that a lot of people are extremely excited about. So
yeah, I'm really surprised that LFM didn't took like a day off or something for that day. But yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Absolutely. Well, Johnny, amazing stuff from you this evening. Congratulations on a fantastic pole position, a wonderful drive to return to the podium positions. Whether we see you back on track next week or the week after, best of luck for the next race to come, and fantastic to have you back in here again, buddy.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.
Fantastic stuff there. Talking to a very happy man indeed. Had a feeling that there'd be a big smile on his face. And we will look to bring in the man that finished P2 in this race. Had a real back and forth dynamic of applying pressure to Castorino at the front, then losing some time, then gaining it back again. Aiden, talk us through a little bit of what was such a chaotic race from start to finish, the changing conditions, different strategies, strengths and weaknesses of your car coming into effect throughout that 60 minutes, but a fantastic P2 to end with at the end of it. How are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm very happy with that. A lot of emotions during the race when we saw the weather changing. obviously the track started very, very wet and it was going to be drying out. So we thought, let's just go long enough so the track can start drying, then we'll take slick tires. And lo and behold, that's not what the track wanted to do. And it decided to start raining again, which was not on our bingo cards. Didn't have enough fuel to get to that point. So I ended up boxing during the dry phase for some wet tires. But fortunately, the track stayed wet enough that it didn't completely shred them. But yeah, bit of a roller coaster, and very happy with how it turned out. To be honest, seems like we made the right gamble there.
Absolutely, and it was clearly, it caught out, some very, very strong drivers, the likes of George Boothby, of course. He went for those slick tyres at the beginning of the race. Was it ever a consideration for you when you were looking at that weather forecast, or was it firm commitment to starting on the wet tyres?
We're all in a voice chat when we were gridding, and I heard every variation of the strategy known to man. I thought of every strategy at the same time and didn't really think about which was the right one. With 30 seconds to go, slapped on the wets, changed the fuel load, and prayed it was the right call, ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes in those sorts of conditions, that is all that you can do with that. And you played it brilliantly. And whilst, as you say, the slight miscalculation on the fuel may have potentially caused concern at that midpoint in the race, with the way that the weather played out, how you drove, and that consistency to Vienna still brought home a fantastic P2 finish. So a great way to start off season 17 around a very tricky circuit in tricky conditions. We're heading to the Nürburgring for next week's round. Any thoughts or feelings as to where that Aston might put you there? Because, of course, it's a great car in mixed conditions. If it looks more towards a pure dry race, it's likely to actually be a bit mixed again, so it could be a strong one. So where's your head at with that round, do you think?
Well, anybody who's driven the Aston knows it's like a pogo stick as soon as it goes over any kind of curbs. The last chicane is going to be a particularly interesting experience. Hopefully there's no explosions or landmines kicking about, and we get to make it through without an incident ultimately. I really hope the car can stay consistent. I can drive consistently enough, and we hold it together, because it's got all the right kind of corners for the Aston Martin. It's got all the second and the third gear exits where the car has monstrous acceleration compared to the rest of the field. But chicanes with huge jumps, not really the strong point.
I think for the British outfit, when they were putting together that suspension geometry, it probably wasn't quite on the cards. That
Monster
one.
truck wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to see how it plays out, and I'm sure that that chicane tends to be a pretty tense experience for anybody heading through there. But there are certainly cars that make it a bit of a trickier time than others. So, Aidan, fantastic evening of driving from you. Big congratulations on a well-deserved P2 finish, and best of luck at the Nürburgring next week and negotiating that fun shenanigans of a chicane for 60 minutes at a time. But look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks a lot, John. Cheers.
Take care, Aidan. Great stuff from the man that finished in P2 today, and whilst he has been waiting patiently in the interview room, and patience was the name of the game for another race win to add to his ever-growing tally. A crazy race from start to finish, but your newly crowned two-time Pro Series champion, of which I can now say congratulations to you directly on that Amadeo. Once again, showing why you are the masterclass driver that you are. Patience when it counted, mastering the strategy, consistency as always, and another race win in that Nissan GTR. You must be delighted with how season 17 has started off for you.
I'm really happy about this result, to be fair, because I know that I had the chance to do a good result, but wasn't like easy. Like the competition was very high for this round one. I also threw the last lap on quali and maybe could do a P2 or P3, but P6 was, could be worse, And I was like just managing the tires for the first part. Also, the strategy was the right one, luckily. And I was just managing the tire, waiting for an opportunity. Then Hoban made a mistake, so I overtook him. And then there is the first thing that saved my race was having a mirror because like I saw behind that Abulaz and Ruben they have a contact, so Ruben went like with full speed into the bus stop. So if I didn't look at the mirror, like probably my race wasn't ending with a win because like I tried to avoid the contact as much as possible. So the contact was a lot lighter than what could be if I was just tuning like normally. So I didn't lost much, like only 3/4 on the bus stop in that lap. So that was the first thing that saved my race. Then I wait for an opportunity for to overtake Zimbal, and after that I was P3, and I had to box. Like I didn't plan when to change tire because I didn't have any more fuel, so I have to pit in that lap because I was thinking that we will go to dry tires after the pit because at the start of the race the weather was saying 30 minutes of dry. But then the rain will come back at the end, so I choose to go on wet again, and was the right choice, luckily. And yeah, luckily the undercut also worked, so I was P1. And then like I just need to overtake Abulazzi because he didn't change the tires, and also same thing for Campanella. And then like another thing that helped me a little bit is that I gained about 1 second because Campanella defended the position on the on Walsingham. Was Nissan Solidarity, I guess, and and then I think, yeah, probably even without that, I was going to win the race, but was for sure more complicated because at the beginning, Walsingham was catching me also because he has more fresh tire wear. But then probably I don't know if he has wrong tire pressure or something, but like his pace dropped a lot, so I gained it and I could like manage a bit on the last 3 4 laps because the gap was a bit more big. But yeah, I'm really proud because this is the fourth win in a row, so that's kind of crazy. Like I was, to be fair, very focused on this race because like I want to keep the streak as long as possible because it will be like, I'm not saying possible, but very hard to do it again. So yeah, very proud about it.
Absolutely, it reminds me of a little bit of Sebastian Vettel's, championship winning days, and and how you have to cherish these times because they don't always happen. And Amadeo, you of course have been on fire for a number of races now, but yeah, that is an immense record that you've had so far. Four consecutive race wins, and of course the perfect way to kick off season 17. And I want to get your perspective, especially like it's perhaps too early to start thinking about the championship scenario after a single round. But of course, I imagine that you would have made some observation of where last season's protagonists were Sam, George. Tricky day for them, gambles taking on the strategy in terms of George, I think Sam as well, both going for slick tires if I'm not mistaken for the opening stint, and a strategy that just never came good for them in the end. How much confidence does it give you in terms of being able to just bank in a race win where they're your nearest championship contention from last season has started off with effectively the equivalent of a drop round, very likely, for both of those drivers. Already, how does that sit in terms of your mindset of how you treat the following rounds, or does it not change your approach over the next few weeks?
I mean, I don't care a lot about the fact that they had a bad race. I'm more happy about that I already scored a win, so that are for sure good points. Like it's impossible that it is a drop round, of course. And yeah, because also in this season, if I'm not wrong, we have 4 drop rounds. So like it doesn't matter that much. I think I have a very bad race. Like also you can take a bit more risk on the strategy and stuff like that. Like consistency will be always very important, but for sure a little bit less than other season. So like have a like, because if you have a race like in P8 or 10 or a race in P last, I don't think it's a big change because it will be probably a drop round anyway if you want to be top 3 at the end of the championship. So I mean, you still have to push and try to get a podium or something like that every round is the target, I think.
Absolutely, and just remind me, because I know that you did a fantastic summary post on this. What was your race win tally and podium tally from last season?
How was what? Sorry.
How many race wins and podiums did you have last season?
Last season was 5 wins, 9 podium, and I care about also top 5. That was 11. Luckily, we don't have Nordschleife, so it will be more easy to score top 5 this time. Maybe.
I think, you know, those statistics in themselves are menacing words to the rest of the grid to hear. With, you know, even with the consideration of 8 contributing rounds and 4 drop rounds, and as I've also been kindly reminded by our wonderful statistician Kylo in the chat, 7 pole positions last season as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that you're still very much well equipped to go into this championship fight and maybe be the first driver to make it 3 titles in the Pro Series. It's early days yet, but we'll have to see. But you've certainly started off Season 17 in the perfect way. Before I wrap up with you for the evening, I do want to cast your mind over to Nürburgring next week. Of course, very different circuit, but potentially similar-ish conditions. We've got some possibility of wet weather, mixed conditions again. Any thoughts or feelings as to how that GTR might be performing around there?
I think it's a lot dependent of how much water you have on track. Like with light rain, the car is very strong, not on a single lap, but on a race pace, because the tire wear is very good because you keep the temperature low. But I think especially in a track like Nürburgring, the Honda will flying in wet condition because of all the traction zones. But I expect to be like an average car. Depends on how much wet it is. Not super fast and not slow. I think will be average, but we'll see.
Absolutely. If it's as crazy and chaotic as tonight, then it could be anyone's race. But you always tend to have a habit of being up at the pointy end, so I'm sure that you will be fighting there once again. Congratulations, of course, on that championship from last season. Unfortunately, like I say, I didn't get to see that season through, so it's nice to be able to talk to you now and immediately then be able to congratulate you on a fantastic season once again and a second Pro Series title, and then, of course, on that 4th consecutive race win and a perfect start to Season 17 for you. So, Amadeo, thank you so much for hopping into Cosbox for once again. Great stuff tonight, and best of luck for Nürburgring next week.
Yeah, thank you. Also, I made a podium just for take your congratulations for hear you again. And yeah, have a nice evening, guys, and hope to see you again next week.
Fantastic.
Cheers.
Amadeo, take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Great stuff then from your reigning champion, your 2-time Pro Series champion now, and joining that elite club. And of course, tonight's winner in what was a very busy, tricky, and crazy race here at Spa. Was it ever going to be anything different? Not really. It's a crazy, legendary circuit. It is a proper driver's track. It was forecast for mixed conditions, and it treated us to exactly what we have come to expect in the Pro Series, and that is some of the best racing that you can find around in the world of ACC and sim racing. So amazing stuff from everybody from this evening, and we will look to hopefully take a little bit of a run through the results of the evening in just a short moment, and we can indeed do just that. Oh no, the music is on fire. There we go. As you can see, then Castorino winning ahead of Walsingham, Jardier, O'Sullivan, great chance from him at the end, Huben, Zibbel, Burnt, Nashvili, Brenham, Paul, Campanella, Frey, Abalazzi, Zerbin, and Coots to the end of your top 15 after that crazy race. Rangers, Petzol, Ramone, Foch, Mex, Bruto, Gessel, Lawrence Boothby, disappointing start to the season for him, but as the reigning champ alludes to, still very much in it. Delphanta, Manar, Vassar, Surenrauch, Duvala, and Gaskell towards the end of the top 30, as they were almost a lap down in the end. Hip out for last driver on the lead lap. Vantine stopping just before the end, and then Tadai, Adler, Schneckenberg, Ayamalo, and Lynn Iverson, your final drivers in the grid order. So great stuff from everybody today that finished that crazy race, because it was a very busy one to say the least. But what a perfect way to kick off season 17 in the Pro Series. It is always a joy seeing these guys going toe to toe with one another, putting on some amazing racing and delivering what we have come to know and love. And I'm sure over the next 11 weeks it is going to continue to do exactly the very same. Just as a reminder for those that are interested in what these drivers are competing for, they are looking at a grand total of, if I can just make my way over to the slide, 5,000 euros worth of a prize out the ground, brought to you by Case King, of course, of Moser Racing, Nitro Concepts, and Sim Magic goodies. So lots to enjoy and look forward to, and that is why these guys try to give it absolutely everything every time that they go racing. And also there is the schedule for the remainder of the season, heading to Nürburgring for round number 2 of the season before we head off into what is shaping up to be a little bit of an interesting one. We do, of course, have those 4 drop rounds, and look at that for the likes of the 3rd round and 9th round of the season. We've got Porsche Cup Car, we've got BMW M2, so we'll be seeing the very best in the world of ACC, taking to some slightly different vehicles as well in the mid part of the season. It's going to be really interesting to see how that shapes up for everybody. Who ends up managing to still perform on those rather curious days? Are we going to see any sort of rogue specialists in some of those cars maybe make surprise appearances to the podium? We'll have to wait and see. We very nearly had surprise appearances from the likes of O'Sullivan and Zimble tonight. So if that can happen around one of those driven circuits on ACC in GT3 cars, I think there's a fairly good shout that we could see similar sorts of things over the course of the rest of the season. So much to look forward to and enjoy as the season plays on. If you have enjoyed all of the crazy action from this evening, then do consider following us here on the Twitch channel so you can stay in touch with all of the racing goodness that the Case King Pro Series has to offer, because it is going to be a blinder of a season, of course, as always. If you want to catch up on any action from this evening and over the course of the season, and maybe even reflect on past seasons as well, then you can also take to the YouTube channel, subscribe over there, and catch up with all of that stuff as well. If you do want to show a little bit of extra generosity to the hidden heroes that do make all of this possible, you can also subscribe here on Twitch as well, if you wish to. And for those that do so, big thank you. It really does mean the world. But very much having each and every single one of you here, cheering along with your drivers, discussing with me, helping me during the races as well, is all that I could ask for, and it is wonderful to have you here. And while so you've been sitting at home watching these guys take to what was a very tricky evening of action, if you've been wondering how life might be behind the wheel yourself, well then you can find out. If you head over to the lofielmotorsport.com website, you can get yourself a license, work your way up through the ranks, and you can compete in series like the Case King Pro Series for prizes and so much more. There is so much in the world of ACC over on the LFM platform now to get stuck into, where you can do stuff with your friends. You can compete in GT4s. You can do all sorts of great things. The Endurance Series, of course, as well. There is also plenty of other things. If ACC isn't quite your cup of tea, the OG Assetto Corsa 1 is on the platform. iRacing has also been making an increasing presence as well. Also, Mobilista 2, of course, hitting the scenes very recently in LFM, and it has been an absolute blast for so many getting stuck into the action. So there is something for everybody, whether you want prototypes, single-seaters, Formula 1 cars, you name it, there will be something there for you, and it'd be wonderful to have you out on track as we continue to grow this wonderful community. But if you just fancy staying in touch with all of the action and everything that LFM has to offer in the future and make a world of new friends as well, you can also join the Discord server. You'll be welcomed in with open arms, share pictures of your cats and dogs. We're a friendly bunch, and we would love to have you there as well. But after a crazy evening of action here at Spa-Francorchamps, kicking off Season 17 in style, we look forward to the next 11 weeks of action. Unfortunately, I won't be here next week for the Nürburgring. Hopefully, fingers crossed, somebody can cover me in my absence, but I will then be here for the majority of the season from that point onwards. We should be able to hopefully finish the season strong, contrary to Season 16. So do not go anywhere. Stay in touch with everything, and I look forward to seeing you all once again as the Case King Pro Series is going to be an absolute blast, and I cannot wait to see where it goes. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Welcome to 2025. Welcome to LFM. But until next time then, it's goodbye.